Hey yo, Chris here, and thanks for tuning into the Delta. Tonight I have a little bit of free time, and I thought we could have a little bit of a fun, unscripted discussion about grading the Australian Grand Prix drivers. Take a look here. I got my tier maker up. All the drivers are in A plus to F. That's the grading scale here I grew up with in America. A plus being the best, F being the worst, and C's, we had a common saying in college there: C's get degrees. So if you got a C, you ain't doing bad, but you obviously have tons of room for improvement. Um, what we'll do is we'll just go down the line from where people finished in the race, and that's what makes it interesting. Because usually Max Verstappen would be the last person you discuss in a video like this, but this time around, Max Verstappen placed last. So, he did not finish. We can take a look here, and he got pole position, which is a huge bonus for him. So, like, for having a good weekend right away and getting pole position, you place him at C plus. Now you have to perform at the race, and I personally think he would have had a good race. Probably would have won, right? So wow, put him at A, B plus, A plus, depending on how much he wins by. If he comes in second, you put him in the B plus range. But the fact of the matter is he did not finish, and despite the DNF not being his fault, he has to be brought down to a C. And the only reason he gets the C is because of the pole position and the relatively good weekend he had. If we move along, the next person in line was Lewis Hamilton. Now, old Lewis here, we'll put him in the C plus range to start with, and then move him around as we discuss. Nice root beer on the rocks, tastes delicious in your mid 30s on a weekday night. But yeah, back to Lewis Hamilton. We will see. What did he qualify at? He qualified 11th, so he didn't even make Q3. Boom. Lewis Hamilton, you're too good. You need to do better than that. Now, come race day, you also did not finish. Now, much like Max Verstappen, it was early in the race. We have no idea how the outcome would have been. Maybe he gets into the top 10. Probably gets in the top 10 with the George Russell crash. So we can't put him down to F or anything like that just because he didn't make Q3. So I think we'll keep him at D plus. He needs to be better. Mercedes needs to be better for him. But yeah, D plus is a fair grade in my opinion. Moving along, then you go on to George Russell. Where did George Russell qualify? He qualified 7th. So he made Q3. Much like Max Verstappen, you get to go to Q3, you automatically start at that C plus range. Now he put together a solid race. He was my letdown performance pick for my predictions this week. And he didn't really let down. He is clearly outperforming an underperforming Mercedes race car. So you'd love to put him up in the B plus B range, and he's making that hard push there to advance against Alonso before the crash. And that's not his fault. That's why Alonso got that penalty. So, in my opinion, he lasted longer in the race, raced hard, gave it his all, made Q3, but did not finish. So C plus he will receive. Esteban Ocon now drives what the Brits call a tractor. I love that analogy. He drives a very slow car, but he did come in 13th in the previous race and kind of gave us hope, right? But he just didn't perform. I'm trying to think, was he one that did not have a good pit stop? Again, it's hard to give a bad grade to somebody that didn't that finish last or perform poorly not because of their own doing. But again, the fact of the matter is that you didn't do well. You didn't even, I mean, you weren't even really competitive throughout the entire race, per se. So, Esteban Ocon, because you did finish the race, you won't get an F. That's not fair. Where did he qualify? Didn't one of them? Well, he made it to Q2 and started in 15th. We'll put him at D plus. Not a not great, but again, I mean, he's just in that bad car. There's nothing you can do about that when you're driving a horrible car. Zhao Guan Yu, he's up next. He placed 15th. He qualified at 19th. So for him, he did advance some spots. So that's not bad. But again, he's in a bad car and their pit crew is atrocious. Someone somewhere all the time is always getting screwed in the pit stops for Kick Sauber. I just can't go very high though grading him. I think he belongs in the same category with Esteban Ocon. He's not performing. The team's not driving well. The car's not driving well. It's just not going in his favor in any shape or form. We'll put him in D plus and wipe our hands of that. That brings us to Valtteri Bottas. All right, Bottas. I like Valtteri. There's something about him I like. Maybe it's his haircut. Where did he qualify? He qualified 13th. He finished 14th. Now, this is one of those weird ones where I believe he was having a very good race for him. He was outperforming his car. He was doing the best he could to stay within the pack. And at one point, he was in 11th position. And then he went to the pit stop where his crew screwed him. And that's just, unfortunately, not his fault. I would be willing to bet that he maybe even gets into the points at 10th, maybe even 9th, based on the knowledge we have about George Russell crashing. And just based on the fact that he was competing for the majority of the race until that pit stop problem, we'll put him at a B. Now, after Valtteri, Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly qualified 17th, finished 13th. So, where did Pierre Gasly go? He up front. Okay, there's Pierre Gasly. Now, he outperformed his teammate, obviously, by a few spots. He was lapped. He did not have a good qualifying, though. Kicked out of Q3. So, getting kicked out of Q3, that puts you at the D range, right? You gotta advance to get some good grades, right? And then Pierre Gasly moves up, does his race, and ends up in 13th. And I mean, for coming in 13th spot, you can get a C, man. You're driving a tractor, and you moved up, and that's good. Good for Pierre Gasly. Much more work needs to be done on Alpine's side, but for this race, he outperformed Esteban Ocon. He gets one grade above. Next to finish was Daniel Ricciardo. Now, this is one of those ones where, like the numbers say he finished well, but he also did not make it out of Q3, starting in 18th spot. So, do we give him some points for finishing 12th, or do we sit there and say, like, you're just not driving well? I don't have a Daniel Ricciardo pick. There we go. Got Daniel added in there. All right, back to Daniel. Daniel did not qualify well. Qualified 18th. He finished 12th. That's a good leap there for him. You know, that's solid place movement. But he's just not doing well overall. But I don't necessarily think we can dock him too much when, based on his previous performances, when he is moving up places. On the flip side, his teammate, Yuki Tsunoda, got into the points and then got even more points when the penalty for Fernando Alonso got enforced. So someone on that team is definitely figuring out how to get the most out of that car. Daniel Ricciardo isn't, and because of that, I think we move him down to C. After Daniel Ricciardo, you have Alexander Albon. If you watched my race video recap, you know how I feel about the whole Williams and Albon getting the Sargent's car thing. It doesn't jive well with me. I won't go back into that soapbox, but it really bothered me that he wrecked and the Williams decided to give Albon his car. That's not okay in my opinion. And then despite that, he qualifies in 12th, which it's a Williams, so getting into Q2 isn't horrible. What he can do is place 11th. That's the best he could do. And that's with, when you're talking about 3-point getters, typical point getters, and George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and Max Verstappen. Like, if those guys don't get DNF, Albon is probably then finishing 14th, 15th, 13th range. So Alex Albon, in my opinion, after crashing his car, stealing his teammate's car, and then still not getting points despite the places spotted to him, I don't necessarily know if that's an F grade, but it's not a good grade. We'll keep him at D for now. We'll keep Alex Albon at grade level D. Now we're getting into the points. And the next is 10th place, Kevin Magnussen. Now, K-Mag drove Haas. He qualified 14th, finished in 10th, earned himself and his team 1 total point. And, I mean, let's be real. Like, no one expected this out of Haas. Now, obviously, those crashes and DNS really helped them out, but that's what Haas need. They need a little bit of fortune on their side, and they got it. And they put together a solid race, and he and his teammate ended up getting points. And because K-Mag got his points, he will get a B. He's up there with Valtteri. He just put a good enough race together and worked well with more good team driving. Benefited from George Russell's crash and earned himself a B. Next, you have then Nico Hülkenberg, a 9-10 finish for Haas. My predictions were Haas scores double points as the shocker pick. What makes this more fun is that Nico Hülkenberg didn't even get out of Q3. He qualified 16th, finished 9th, and he falls under the same category as K-Mag, just putting together an excellent race and benefiting from the crashes. But because he finished better than K-Mag and he jumped so many more positions, coming from 16th spot, we're going to give old Nico Hülkenberg a B+. I really like how Haas is performing this year. The beginning of the season, we all thought they were going to be the Alpine, right? And then Alpine existed, and they're not the worst team. But also, Kick exists, and they're better than Kick. And I just think that Haas is just opportunistic. They see an opportunity to take a spot, to play the long game, and the car isn't horrible, and because of the results of that, they get into points at the Australian Grand Prix. Now we move on to the bad boy himself, Fernando Alonso. Now, Fernando Alonso was pushing that car, managing his tires, doing his Fernando Alonso thing. Fernando Alonso ended up qualifying 10th, so he made it Q3. Good for Alonso on that. Put together a solid race and a decent tire strategy, and he was up for the points there to place, what, 6th or 7th, right? So all's good in Fernando Alonso's world until he essentially brake checked George Russell and forced George Russell to crash into the wall. He received a massive penalty for that, and there's a lot of controversy about like should DRS exist, because these are the types of things that you force the lead driver to do when he knows that a DRS zone is coming up and he has no way to defend it. So how is someone supposed to defend when they're defenseless? Now that's a topic for, you know, brighter minds than myself, but because Fernando Alonso, in my opinion, played dangerous to the point where we're lucky that George Russell didn't get into a more serious accident, and the way he landed his car across the track, didn't get T-boned later or shortly thereafter, I just have to give Fernando Alonso a D+. He is a quick driver, solid driver, still got points, but I'm sorry, when you are the result of such dangerous things, you can't be rewarded. So Fernando Alonso this time around gets a D+. Hopefully he cleans his acts up and can move back up and get his grades up for future races. Now we move on, though, to Yuki Tsunoda, the other RB. The RB driver that is actually performing and driving very, very hard and still struggling, but finding result. He ended up getting points for RB for the first time, placing in 7th. Where did he qualify? He qualified in 8th. So he made Q3. So he's in the points, made Q3, driving better than Daniel Ricciardo, and also benefited from the Alonso penalty. I think we'll give him, based on the fact that we gave Nico Hülkenberg a B+, we have to give Yuki Tsunoda a B+ as well, because he is just one of those guys that is in a car that they can't quite figure out, and he's just finding some performance out of it, particularly in this race. So, Yuki Tsunoda, B+. We go on to Lance Stroll. We all know how I feel about Lance Stroll. He's not my favorite driver. Makes many mistakes that I think someone of his experience level should not be making. Qualified 9th, ahead of Alonso. And then also placed 6th in the race, earning the team 8 points. As much as it pains me, it sounds like he belongs up in the B+ range as well. I don't think he did anything spectacular in the race, so maybe a B then. He obviously benefited from Alonso's penalty also. So we can't get too carried away, because really he would have placed 7th. I think we leave him at B. I don't think he did anything spectacular, like outperformed the car like Yuki and Nico, or jumped many, many spots like Nico did. So B for Lance Stroll. Now we can move on to Sergio Perez. Sergio over here did not have, well, he did actually have a very good qualifying. He qualified 3rd, but he did have a penalty, a 3 grid place penalty enforced on him, which knocks him down a few pegs. Bad. Don't commit penalties. Committing penalties is the #1 way to get bad grades. Then on top of that, he was just never able to get that car moving again to climb the field. Like, I just have a feeling that, like, if Max Verstappen was in that position where he starts in 6th place or something like that, it's not going to take long before Max Verstappen just climbs the ranks and takes the lead. I mean, we've seen Max do that further back. But we've seen Perez do it too, but this race he didn't. Which, I don't know why. He didn't perform up to Red Bull standards or Sergio Perez standards by that matter. However, he did salvage the race and came in 5th place. He did earn his team 10 points, which are really crucial when your teammate didn't get any. I think we can give Sergio Perez B or C. B, C. you got to give him at least a B if you're giving Lance Stroll a B, right? I think we'll go with a B, just because finishing top 5 is still difficult in my opinion when you're racing amongst professionals. Now, after that, you have Oscar Piastri. I really like this kid. He just seems like he knows what he's doing out there. He knows his role. He knows how to get the most out of his car. He doesn't rustle feathers or anything like that. He just goes out there and races consistently. I do think there was some issues there with the strategy and Lando Norris's strategy, and Piastri was losing pace later in the race. But you have Piastri over here qualifying in 6th. I said he was going to be my excellent performer for this race, and it's the guy that like makes you feel good and happy and deserves a round of applause and a pat on the back, and he certainly did that this race. So Oscar Piastri ended up finishing 4th outside of the podium, but that's because it was team order to give it up to Lando, which makes sense because I think things would have gone downhill if they didn't make that decision at the time they did. I think what we do with Oscar Piastri is we give him an A. He was on his home track, qualified well, at one point was holding 3rd place, was ordered by the team to give it up to Lando, and he still put together a good race. Oscar Piastri gets an A. It's that simple. He raced well, and I expect him to continue to race well in that McLaren. And then talking about McLaren, we'll go to the other one, Lando Norris, which isn't very difficult. I think he goes right up there with Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris found pace in that car there in Australia. He qualified 4th, finished 3rd, made it to podium. He thinks that he could have caught Leclerc, but because of some strategy discrepancies, they couldn't catch him, and then that's fine. I personally think that the McLaren isn't as fast as that Ferrari. I think maybe for this race it was, but I think Leclerc and his car aren't fine-tuned yet, and I just don't think McLaren is close like Lando thinks they are. Now, maybe he might have just was referring to the Australia race, but I think that Leclerc will get his car put together and in order, and once that happens, I don't think McLaren will be able to keep up with him. But for this race, he did excellent, made the podium, double points, 3-4 for McLaren, A for Lando Norris. And then that moves us then to Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc kind of gets a demerit because of his qualifying. He bailed out of his final lap there in Q3, which is fine. You give other guys good grades for reaching Q3, but it's Charles Leclerc. You're expected to make Q3. Not only are you expected to make Q3, but you're expected to be like top 3, usually first row, and occasionally in pole. And that's where I would put you then, at an AA+ with that performance. But because you placed 5th in a Ferrari, I can't just give you an A. You had a bad performance there in qualifying, and the team had a good strategy for him, and he just worked with a car that he was complaining wasn't feeling right. I think for Leclerc, we give him a B+, because he needs to be better. If he wants to be in the discussion for world champion and up at that level, then let's do that. Once you start getting pole positions and more podiums, we'll give you A+. Now, with the A+, though, that this is no brainer, that goes to Carlos Sainz. He had an excellent weekend, excellent qualifying, qualified on the front row in 2nd place, right next to Max, had a great start off the line, had a flawless strategy by the team. He drove flawlessly, even in the beginning, even in the middle, even at the end. Now, there was a little brief time period where I thought Lando might catch Leclerc when the cars were still kind of close together, but Carlos Sainz, the smooth operator, I mean, he never wavered. The tire management was great. I mean, everything he did was excellent. And then to top it all off, it's after he was recovering from appendicitis surgery. It's just a no-brainer to put him at A+. Now, here's Logan Sargent. We give him an F just because he didn't even show up, but that's not his fault. We give him a D+ because sometimes you just give bonus points to people when it's not their fault, right? I can't give you a passing grade, but we'll give you some points here to help you in the future. That's Logan Sargent. But yeah, there you have it. You have Carlos Sainz with the A+, and the McLaren's performing extremely well. Nico and Yuki outperforming their cars, and Charles Leclerc needs some work to be done. Bottas, K-Mag, Lance Stroll, again, doing more than I expect them to do. And Perez, who I always expect to be getting A's and A+, underperformed, getting a B. George Russell, to no fault of his own, gets that crash and doesn't finish, but put together a great race, so he gets the C+. Max Verstappen, again, didn't finish, so that's unfortunate, but he didn't finish early, and that's why he got a C. You have then Pierre Gasly and Danny Ricciardo, who got C's for different reasons. Pierre Gasly, because he moved up in the placement more than I would expect an Alpine to do. Meanwhile, you have Daniel Ricciardo, who didn't do as well as I think he should when his teammates up there getting points. And then you have the D+ range with Lewis Hamilton, who didn't do well, didn't perform well at quali. You have Esteban Ocon, who finished last amongst the remaining drivers to finish the race. Zhou Guanyu, because he's driving a horrible car and not getting anything extra out of it. Fernando Alonso, because he's a bad boy and almost killed a guy. And then you have Logan Sargent, because I don't know where else to put him. It's not fair that he didn't even get to race. And then Alex Albon is below Logan Sargent because he took his car and still didn't get points. Anyway, those are the grades that I got. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was just more fun, unscripted. I want to do more of these videos just so I can get better at more improv and ad-lib talking, because I enjoy these things. I enjoy talking through fun hypotheticals or fun little games like we did tonight. But anyway, if you enjoyed the content, like and subscribe. My name is Chris. You've tuned into the Delta. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and have fun out there. Bye, everybody. Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning in. If you're enjoying this video, you're going to love what we have over on Twitch. Over there, I may play many games, but with the F1 season quickly upon us, I want you to join me with some F1 gaming content. I am thinking of playing games like F1 23 or F1 Manager on Thursdays and or Friday nights prior to the actual race in real life. For example, if they are racing in Silverstone, we race in Silverstone, and see how we stack up as a driver or team manager. Over there, we can chat about F1, share some opinions, stories, jokes, or anything really, accompanied by some fun Formula 1 gameplay. Head over to the Twitch channel at twitch.tv/delta_4_7_G to join the fun. Don't miss out, hit that follow button, and be a part of the action. See you there. Oh, too fast, slow down. Oh, missed all this.